Most of you are probably looking at this thing and thinking it looks identical to the Happy Model Sailfly, and you would be pretty darn correct in assuming that. So this is essentially the Sailfly with some minor tweaks and rebranded as an Eachine product. Now Eachine, as I've learned, is a company that doesn't actually have any manufacturing. They go to companies that make products that they like and they ask for rebrands while changing some minor details here and there to make it their own unique product. Now, first I want to point out what the actual differences between this thing and the Happy Model Sailfly are, and then I'll tell you a little bit more. The only actual difference is the canopy, which is the canopy from the Mobula, and the FPV camera and VTX. I'm pretty sure the VTX is still a 25 milliwatt VTX. However, the camera in here is the CADX EOS camera, which I've said in the past I'm really not a fan of. It is highly susceptible to jello, and the field of view is not quite as wide as we would like it to be. The pixels also look very grainy. It looks like it's somewhat low resolution. It's okay at light handling, it's okay at HDR, but overall I don't like it because it has a propensity to have a lot of jello in it. So I actually don't think that this is even as good as the Sailfly. Aside from those differences that I pointed out, everything else is essentially exactly the same. It's using the same Crazy Bee 2 point whatever board, which is the most recent one that has, the only difference is that it has this connector for the camera and you don't actually have to solder in all the camera and the the receiver, the VTX wires. Otherwise, it's got a little cap on the battery in lead, which is supposed to stop everything from burning out when you plug your battery in. They have also flipped the board upside down and redesigned the frame slightly so that you can plug the motor wires in from the bottom. Now, the issue with this is that now you have a bunch of stuff sticking out of the bottom of your frame, and it's a little bit more cumbersome to actually fit your battery in there. It did come with a little bit of a battery pad in there, but it's even more difficult to put the battery in with that battery pad on. It is somewhat nice that you can just unplug motors from the bottom. However, I personally would expect the motors to outlast the frame, because as you can see here, the frame has been cut in the wrong angulation and it makes the arms very flimsy. It's a very soft frame, just like the Sailfly. Now, will it hold up? Well, the all-up weight on this thing is a very impressive 63 grams, so I actually do think it's going to hold up fine. However, I still think that you might end up breaking the frame before you break one of the motors. It may or may not be true, whatever. The motors are the same Happy Model 1102. This time they say 8700 kV. I would guess that they're probably more along the lines of 7200 or 7000 kV, because this is intended to be a 3S quad. It does perform fine on 2S, and in the video that I'm showing you here, I only flew it on 3S, but it really does expect you to run 3S, and on 3S it is really fast. So I would actually recommend a little bit of a throttle cut on this thing. You would get a lot more flight time out of it. With the 100% throttle, you're going to get about 3 minutes flight time, which is totally acceptable, totally within the range of any toothpick class build. I am still worried about the all-in-one board burning out, because you're still running 3S on a board that was originally intended to run 1S, and you can see here that I've already cut off my antenna here because it flopped over and got whacked by the blades and it chopped my antenna. So my video quality, or my video signal quality, is just not good anymore. Other issues with it is that the receiver quality on the board, even if you bind it in D8 mode, is not very good. The range is very poor. It's maybe 300 feet max where I am, and I am in a very bad radio environment. And as I said, I'm not a big fan of the camera on here, and they also have a separate VTX in there, and if you do take it apart, you'll notice that there's a bunch of foam and stuff holding things apart so that they don't short each other out. I much prefer this little tiny all-in-one camera. Not only is it a little bit lighter, I actually think the video quality is significantly better than the EOS camera, not the RunCam cameras. I actually think the $20 RunCam Nano, not the Racer Nano 2 whatever, not the $35 one with the wire that you can change settings and whatnot. The regular one is the one I prefer. I think that one is better than this camera. Otherwise, I prefer this camera to every other micro camera on the market, it's just the all-in-one one. It's the one that was on the Mobula. It's a very well-known camera at this point. Nothing really special. Other things I would say is that the 300 milliamp battery that it comes with is identical to the Happy Model 300 milliamp battery. It performs fine. I am not a fan of 3S for quads of this size. I think 2S is totally reasonable. It's not you're not getting any more or less performance with 3S, so it's totally fine the way it is. As long as the all-in-one board holds up, it should be great. The flight performance is great. It's just unfortunate that the camera quality, or not the quality, just overall, I'm just not a fan of the camera. Now, there's another quad I recently reviewed, other than this one, which is this one, the GEP-RC Phantom. This is in the same, I think, price range. No, I think it's a little bit more, but it is a more workable build, and I actually prefer this one to the Red Devil or the Sailfly because it's much more reasonable to work on. It's got individual boards. You could potentially replace them if you need to. It's got a full-blown receiver that you can swap out easily. The motors are the same, essentially. Props are the same. Everything else is the same. It weighs a little bit more. The overall speed and power is not quite as much as the Sailfly or the Red Devil, but I personally think that I would have an easier time keeping this in the air running than I would this one. So yeah, do with it what you will. I personally wouldn't recommend this Red Devil version. I would prefer the Sailfly if I was to get it myself. I would also like to point out that the Sailfly that I had, which I passed on to somebody else by now, was a particularly good Sailfly. Mine performed really stellar. Like I had no jello, no performance issues, no dipping, nothing at all. Whereas this one is another one, and it doesn't quite perform the same as the one I had. And I've tried about 4 or 5 other Sailflies as well, and they just all perform a little bit differently. Things of this size are a little bit finicky. It really matters what props you put on them. If you need to change props for this thing, I would recommend getting 3, 4, 5 different versions of this particular 65mm prop to just see which one works best on the quad. I don't fully understand why it is how it is. Also, I would point out that the motors on this thing are very poor quality. While they do perform fine and they're powerful and everything's great about that, the actual balance of the motor is very, very poor. It does have a lot of vibrations, and that does play into the performance and everything, and especially the jello on the camera as well. The props are fine. I mean, most props of this size and this kind of status that you're going to find nowadays fit great, fit fine. Let me see, actually, this is a 1mm shaft or a 2mm shaft? Or sorry, it is a 1.5mm shaft. So it is nice that they went with a 1.5mm shaft. Makes it a little bit more robust, so you're not going to crack the shaft off as easily. But yeah, in general, yeah, it is what it is. I've had some hit or miss luck with the most recent all-in-one boards. The Crazy Bee boards still have the best performance, in my opinion, when they don't burn out, compared to any other like all-in-one platform electronic product in this class category. I have the least dipping from throttle pumps on the Crazy Bee all-in-one boards, and it's overall just the best response. It does definitely still feel the best to me. However, it does have that issue where it has very limited reliability. It's really, really hard to expect this thing to work every time you plug it in, and you pretty much need to have a bunch of them on hand if you want to keep flying, because it's going to fall apart. One last thing I want to point out is that just like the Sailfly, they are using plastic screws for the standoffs, which I don't know why they use. You're very likely to break these plastic screws. Sorry, not for the standoffs, for the board, for the flight control board to be held in. And they are oddly using some zip ties to hold the canopy on as well, which I'm guessing is because they probably tested it for a second and noticed that, hey, if you crash, you're just going to crack those plastic screws off. So yeah, it is what it is. Take it for face value. If you want this style of a quad, I still think the Sailfly is a better deal. I mean, it's a better deal because it's a lot cheaper. It's definitely cheaper. This is like $102, $103. So the Sailfly is definitely cheaper, and it is a much better value overall, and I still think it's a better performer. I think it's a better quad. I would definitely prefer the Sailfly over this quad. If you want a toothpick class quad, I still recommend to this day that you build it yourself. Sonic has come out with some new motors that look really nice. My personal preferred motor is still the Amoxino 1103 7500 kV. I think it has the best balance of efficiency and performance, and the flight time is just incredible on that motor, and you really don't lose in the way of speed or any other kind of performance. That's it. Take care. Floss your teeth. That's always helpful. And I am working on things. It's just really slow lately because I'm really busy. Take care. Bye.